I'm from Echo Consulting. This is our webinar for overcoming project management challenges. If you have ever managed a project, I can guarantee you have had challenges. So we're going to go over some tools and tips to overcome those things today. I am going to do my best to monitor chat, but I also have some assistance here today. So if you have questions at any time, feel free to post in the chat. A little housekeeping before we get started. Melissa, are we recording? Yes, we are. Great. So everybody currently we're going to have muted to reduce background noise so we have a nice clean recording. That said, please feel free to unmute yourself at any time to engage with us and ask questions throughout the session. That's very welcomed. If you'd rather ask questions in the chat, you can do that too. This webinar is for you, so please don't hesitate to speak up. We will be sending out a copy of the slide deck after the webinar, so you'll watch for that in your email after. And get started. So Echo Consulting is a women-owned project management solutions company where we focus on maximizing the ROI, return on investment, for businesses undergoing technical and business transformation projects. This is a picture of our almost 100% current team. There's one person that isn't in this shot. We provide consulting services ranging from part-time project management to strategic planning and prioritization, as well as business process improvement, systems implementation. We kind of help you get everything together and running. Our clients are located throughout the US and beyond and include small startups, mid-sized organizations, and large multi-billion-dollar corporations. So we work with a wide variety of clients and companies. We help teams grow by embracing project management best practices and change management processes to improve your communication in your organization, improve your efficiency, and make less frustration and make your life easier. We work with a variety of software tools, including Smartsheet. We're a partner with Smartsheet, Monday.com, Miro, ClickUp, and that's just a few. We believe that it's not about the tool necessarily, it's about the process, but we do embrace a wide variety of tools. So our philosophy here, build self-sufficiency, not dependency. We want our clients to be independent and to have the knowledge and the tools that they need to use the solutions that we build for them on their own without needing to come back to us again and again for help. So you're not tied to us when you work with us. That said, when our clients do come back to us for work, it's because they want to. So maybe that's expanding their solution, starting a new project, etc., not because they need to and locked in. This is core to who we are, what we believe, and how we work. Okay. So what is project management? We're going to talk about that today. What's the difference between a project and doing what you do every day in your business for your operations, right? So Project Management Institute, PMI for short, defines project management as the use of specific knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to deliver something of value to people. Okay, knowledge, skills, tools, and the techniques. Great, got it. Here's the difference between a project and operation. So if you look up the definition of a project, you're going to see a specific plan or design, a planned undertaking. Okay, that's kind of vague, but if you look up the definition of operations, the performance of a practical work or of something involving the practical application of principles or processes. That's a mouthful. It's a lot of P words. And okay, kind of vague, but I get it. PMI defines a project as a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. Okay, a project, is temporary. It has a clear beginning and a clear end. It's outside of regular day-to-day business activities. If it doesn't have that, it's operations. PMI definition of operations is the ongoing routine activities that are involved in the organization's primary business. Regular day-to-day activities is key. Staffing activities, payroll management, service delivery, accounting, production, inventory, marketing, all of those things. Normal business functions. Okay? So example, ongoing marketing is operations versus rolling out a new marketing strategy, which is a project. Okay. Phases of a project's journey. A project really begins when an opportunity arises for improvement or growth. So an idea, when something new is identified that's going to improve something in our business, that becomes a project. What's the problem to solve? We identify the problem, okay? We articulate the goal. What's the desired result? Identify who can help. Who should be on this team? Who are the people that need to, and we need them to be on this project with us, to hear their voices, their ideas, and help get this done. Defining the solution. What do we think will fix the problem? What do we think is the solution? We may not know at this point, so we may need to dig in more on that, but that's the next step, okay? And then we break up that solution into logical pieces. What needs to be done to meet the goal? Break it down into manageable tasks and SMART goals, which we'll get to in a second. And then we build the solution. We test it to make sure it does what we need it to do. We confirm that it meets the goal. And then we put it into action. So cut over, we communicate it to the team, we train everybody, we get the buy-in from everybody who's going to be using it. That leads to adoption, which is key, and then we can launch it. And so once that project is complete, then that can be transitioned into operations. Okay. Any questions there? I just gave you a bunch. I'm looking at the chat. Okay. If you have questions, just pop them in the chat. So here are two core methodologies for project management. There's more, but these are the most two popular. Waterfall/traditional, it's a very linear approach. There's a clear path from beginning to end, from idea to completion. And agile is more iterative. You may have heard that term too. So it's a way to quickly bring something to bring something to market per se. It's an ongoing process. It's used a lot in software development. You're probably most familiar with the waterfall method. We have other webinars that dig deeper into project management and methodologies, so I'm not going to get into these in depth today. Be sure to check those out on our YouTube page. We've got a ton of videos there that would help you. Okay, last chance for questions before I move on. Okay, so the fact of the matter is 1 in 6 projects fail, which is really sad because we love projects and we don't want them to fail. It's our mission at Echo to make sure that projects that we work on, make sure that they make it to the finish line and that our clients are successful. And that goes for our team as well, right? We want our own projects to be successful. And so what are some common challenges? Lack of strategic alignment. I put this at the top because it's one of the most common things that we see when we work with clients. And you've got to be really clear on this. You've got to be really clear on what's the objective, what's the priority. Is this aligned with the organization or the team's overall strategy and higher objective? If this is a personal project, it's got to be aligned with your own personal values and vision, right? And are the major stakeholders in agreement if you're working with a team? So again, super important. That's why it's number 1. What's a way to overcome this challenge? It's all about setting the right goals. And so setting the right goals, I like to use, and you may have heard of this before, SMART goals. So SMART is an acronym for specific, measurable, actionable, relevant or realistic, depending on who you talk to or which one you like to use, and timely/time bound. Specific means it's very clear. It's very clear what the goal is. It's able to be measured in that you'll know if you've hit it or not. You'll know if you've set that goal or not. We're going to get into an example in a second. It's actionable, meaning you can start on it right away. It has clear action steps. It's relevant to your objective and your bigger vision, and it's a realistic goal, that it's not too pie in the sky, that it is not attainable. And then it has a clear endpoint, so timely or time bound. So I'll give you an example. A goal is grow my network. Okay, I want to grow my network. What does that mean, right? What does that mean? And you may know what that means in your head, but if it's not a SMART goal, there's a really limited chance that that's going to actually happen the way you think you want it to happen. A SMART goal would be grow my professional network by 15 quality new contacts this quarter. To meet this goal, I will meet at least one person for lunch or coffee, in person or virtual, per week, and attend at least one larger networking event per month. So let's break that down. This SMART goal, growing my professional network, so it's specific, right? By 15 quality new contacts this quarter. So there's the time bound, right? 15, it's measurable, time bound. To meet this goal, I will meet at least one person, there's that measurable piece, for lunch or coffee, in person or virtual, per week. There's the timely and time bound, and attend at least one measurable, larger working event per month. Pretty clear, right? That's a SMART goal. And again, you're going to get these slides, so you'll have this example. I highly recommend setting SMART goals for all of your goals. You'll see how much more you can get accomplished. Okay, so that's lack of strategic alignment. Missing requirements or stakeholders. What about blank? This often comes up at the end of a project when being presented or rolled out to the larger team. So if it's presented to stakeholders who weren't involved in the decision-making process, this can happen. If you haven't included some key people that are that need your buy-in, that you need their buy-in, this can happen. So we have a tool for that. And you may or may not have heard of RASCI. RASCI is a tool to help identify the different roles of a project and who fits into those roles. So again, this is an acronym. Responsible is the person or people whose job it is to actually do the work and make sure the project reaches completion. Think of a project manager, perhaps. Accountable is the person who is ultimately responsible for the whole project and owns the output of the work. This person delegates responsibilities to the person who's responsible and signs off on completed work. So it's like the buck stops here, right? If the project doesn't get done, they're in hot water. Supporting are people who provide help to provide assistance to the person who's responsible, the person doing the work. And they have the same goals as the responsible person. They're just in a supporting role. So that might be an administrator, like a sales admin or client services and such. The accountable person is the project sponsor typically. Consulted is somebody who's a SME, a subject matter expert who can give advice or give assistance in a mentor sort of way. So there's definitely a two-way relationship there. That might be a regional sales director, for example. So they're consulted, but they're not actively working on the project. Informed are the people who are maybe this is higher C-suite. They're kept up to date on the project and on the process and the phases and the stages and such. But they're also not working on the project on the day-to-day. They're kept in the loop. That's a one-way communication, which is key. So this is leadership team, this might be marketing, this might be a finance team. So when you're working on a project and setting it up, make sure you aren't missing any stakeholders, make sure everybody's roles are clear, make sure that your communication is effective. Okay. Number 3, lack of visibility. What is the status? I'm going to add number 4 here also because they often go hand in hand. Communication is key so that everybody on the project has accurate, complete information. So visibility, status, right? And lack of communication and / transparency. Are we communicating to the right people in the right frequency? Okay. And also, like, do we know of the risks and the issues and such? And so, again, we have a tool for that. We use a CRADE log. You may have heard of a RAID log. This is a CRADE log that adds a C. We use this with our own team and our clients. We track change requests, risks, actions, issues, and decisions. So every team member can add to this CRADE log and it's responsible for managing their own items. So we have a The ID is optional. The description is what is the CRADE item? What type is it? Is it a change request, a risk, an action, an issue, or a decision? Who owns it? What's the due date? What's the status? What's the priority? And the mitigation plan is what we're going to do, what you would do next. So let me show you a live example. You can make your own CRADE log in a spreadsheet, in a tool like Smartsheet or Monday, even on paper, whatever works for you. The most important thing is it's only effective if everybody uses it. So here at Echo, we check in regularly to review our CRADE log and make a habit of keeping it up to date. And that's really important. So let me see if I can do this without breaking anything. There we go. So are you still seeing my screen?
We are seeing you, Lisa, not your screen.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to send you an example. Let's see, that's what I said. Can I do this without breaking anything? And that clearly didn't work. Bear with me for just a second, guys. I'm going to share so you can see. There we go. So you should be seeing CRADE log template, yes?
Yes, correct.
Awesome. So this is a Smartsheet CRADE log. We use Smartsheet internally because we use it with a lot of projects and we like it. So here we have the description. So stakeholder list, include all users' roles and responsibilities, schedule a kickoff meeting, that's an action. Schedule. These are all actions. If we had something that was like decide about something, it would be a decision. If we had something that was an issue, like or a risk, like somebody on the project is going to be gone for 3 weeks, that's a risk, right? So we would set it as a risk. Then we have who it's going to be assigned to. We are going to set a due date for it. What's the status right now? It's not started. What's the priority? Let's just say it's critical. And then next steps here, okay? Another example would be in Monday. So in Monday, you can have like a master list of all of these things. This is event planning. We're going to have a party. We're going to choose a date. We're going to decide if it's morning or afternoon. We're going to decide on the rain date, the location. Those are all decisions. Actions would be make the guest list, the menu plan, invite people, make a grocery list, et cetera, et cetera. Here are our statuses, due dates, and priority. In Monday and in Smartsheet too, you can filter. So if I wanted to filter by CRADE item, I can group my CRADE requests, my risks, my actions, issues, et cetera, together, and by status and due date, et cetera. So that's just a live example of how a couple of different ways that you could make that. And I'm going to share my other screen now. Any questions so far? Feel free to shout them out. Okay.
Lisa, great question by Caroline that should have clarification. Can you do a quick overview of a difference between a risk and an issue?
Yeah, it's a great question. A risk is something that's in the future, and an issue is something that's currently happening. So if a risk is so-and-so's vacation is going to throw off the project, the issue is we need input from this person and they're not here. Great question. Okay. All right. So that's the CRADE log. Again, we use it a lot. I highly recommend it. And so there's also the issue of communication. And so communication is everything, right? It's critical. It's going to make or break any project. And one thing I just want to point out that it's important to take into account different communication types on your team, different personalities and what works for people. Every team is naturally going to have some team members that are more outgoing or outspoken than others. And the more you can tailor your communication methods to work for everybody, the better your communication is going to be across the team. So that authenticity, that open and free, we want everybody to feel heard. And so here in this team, they look like they're all engaged. This woman in the yellow might be a little, standoffish, but that's also, she's in a super comfy chair, so who knows? If you look at this next picture, you know, virtual meetings make it even easier for quieter folks to blend into the background. So mixing up the ways that you engage will help everybody feel heard. You know, these people actually are on the same team in a meeting, even though they're all sitting around the table. It's a virtual meeting. And so some people might be on camera or off, and some people might be speaking up more than others. Some traditional communication methods, and you can see here from this graphic, what are more vocal. The representation from somebody who's more outgoing than somebody who's quieter in a meeting, you'll definitely see that difference. If you change it up, you mix it up a little bit, like using round robin participation in a scrum, for example, in a stand-up, one-on-one meetings where you're going to get some input from somebody in a smaller setting, a more intimate setting, anonymous surveys, voting, etc. I just put this here so that you can start to think about who's on your team, what their personalities are, and make sure that everybody really has an opportunity to be heard. Okay, so we've gone through lack of strategic alignment, missing requirements and stakeholders, lack of visibility, lack of communication and transparency, right? The last one is lack of ownership and accountability, also key. Who owns this thing? Who owns each part of the project? Who's responsible, accountable, etc.? We go back to the RASCI, okay? So here in this chart, we've got over here, responsible, accountable, supportive, consulted, and informed in our little box on the right. So Victor is accountable for the requirements document. He's accountable for the user experience design, the build, development, testing, training. He's probably the director. He's accountable for all of these things. The person responsible for doing the things, we have Jean, requirements document, testing and training. She's supporting on these other items, right, where the S is. Heather is responsible for the user experience design. Richard is responsible for the build. And then Louise is consulted. So she might be Victor's superior, right? She's consulted about a lot of these things. So play around with this in your own team on your own projects. It's super important to make sure that everybody has a clear role and that you know who is responsible for doing what. That way, nothing gets missed, nothing gets dropped. Nobody says that wasn't my job. So going back to the project journey, you'll now see how everything that we talked about fits into the overall process. We set SMART goals, right? We use a RASCI matrix to identify the roles and responsibilities. We have a clear communication plan, and we use a CRADE log to document change requests, risks, actions, issues, and decisions to be made. We'll have a mitigation plan in case things go sideways. And then lastly, at the end of your project, you'll want to identify who's going to own the overall management of what you've delivered moving forward and how that will be handled. So that's your governance plan. I'm not going to get into that today, but that's the final piece is like, who owns this moving forward and how's that going to be handled? So now using these new tools, you can set up all your future projects for success from the very beginning. You can adopt these strategies to projects that you already have to maybe get them back on track if they are off track a little bit. And I'm going to open it up for questions. If we have any questions, I can't see you, so I need you to speak up.
Lisa, this is Stephanie. I do have a question. So how would you complement a CRADE log and say your project plan or an action item log? Because I see that the headers are very similar to what an action item log or a project plan would look like. So is that having a separate spreadsheet or even using the CRADE log like your project plan?
Yeah, when you say project plan, are you talking about tasks?
Yeah, different action items with having different responsibility, account owners on that project plan with due dates, things like that.
Yep, they can be one and the same. The CRADE is typically, we use it in meetings oftentimes. It's like if something comes up in the meeting and discussion, we'll be like, add this to the CRADE log. This is a decision somebody needs to make, or this is something somebody needs to do. So in that sense, it's different from the project log where you have your task list. That said, you can get in the habit of combining them in a sense and using both together depending on the complexity of your project and the size of your team. I think that's just something that is a personal preference. Good question. Because we have some similarities, yeah. Thanks for the question. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing my screen in a second, but we do have some upcoming webinars, conditional formatting and automations. That's not the right date. Sorry. And then in September, we have best practice for leading impactful meetings. You can follow us on YouTube, Echo Consulting. You'll get these slides when we're done. And our LinkedIn, we are super active on LinkedIn and on YouTube. Okay, so I've stopped sharing. And